On January 30th, 2008, this UBC Biological Sciences building looked nothing like it does now. Police, helicopters, and K-9 teams swarmed offices, buildings, and labs, all because a student wanted to get out of giving a class presentation. That morning, the RCMP received an email threat from then 19-year-old Hui Li, a first-year math and biology student. Li was supposed to give a presentation that day, but his intense fear of public speaking compelled him to end classes any way he could. So, he threatened to commit suicide and take others with him. At 2 p.m., the RCMP locked down the building, barring anyone from entering and around 1,000 people inside from leaving. For the next 3 hours, students, staff, and faculty trapped inside waited for something, anything, to happen.
And I was just sitting there in the lab reading, and this woman came rushing in, and I'd never seen her before. And she used the lab phone, and when she got off, she said, "There's something wrong, like you have to get out of the building." And I went to leave, and the Associate Dean of Science was at the door. And he said, no, we're on lockdown. Like, you have to stay in this room, don't open the door unless someone gives you the password. And he shut the door. And I could hear something, maybe helicopters, so I went to the window, and there was a helicopter circling, at least one, and they'd cordoned off the area. And I could see some police and some people gathered like across the parking lot.
Even students across campus were affected.
I was actually in the COP building, which is the main biochemistry lab building.
So what happened?
Well, I was doing a lab, and all of a sudden my phone starts going off and going off and going off. And then all of a sudden people start to get text messages in the lab. Some people had signed up for the emergency system before there was a big push for it. And they're like, something's going on. And about 5 minutes later, our lab director comes in and says, "Hey guys, don't leave the building. We're apparently in lockdown. There's something going on out there." So the lab's getting towards the end. People are starting to finish up, and the director comes in again. And he's like, "Okay guys, lockdown's not really on for all the buildings anymore. You guys can leave, but get off campus as fast as you can. Don't go near Bioscience."
Around 4:30 p.m., the RCMP began evacuating the building. By 7:30, the site was declared safe. And though the incident got a huge amount of press, that didn't stop Li from sending a similar threat 1 week later. This time, the RCMP traced the email to a computer in the sub and used surveillance cameras to identify him. Both events disrupted science classes for days afterwards.
I taught in that building the very next morning at 8 o'clock, and I had students immediately emailing me, say, "I don't feel safe coming in the building." So that week, I said, fine, don't come if you don't feel comfortable. You won't be required to make up anything for that particular day. So the issue came around really for my class the next week when we were put in. The building was closed again the next Wednesday, and my students had an exam the next Thursday morning at 8 was their midterm. So again, I had students writing me sort of that night at 10 o'clock, the night before the exam, saying, I don't feel comfortable writing this exam. And I felt kind of, helpless at that point. So I wrote immediately to the dean about midnight probably that night and said, what do I do? And he wrote right back and said, "I'll be there and I'll have security there for your students."
This past April, Li was given a conditional sentence, which included a 6-month curfew and a letter of apology to be printed in the Ubyssey. This is what he had to say. I truly would like to apologize for causing a great public disturbance and distress to all students, faculties, and staff at UBC. I am terribly sorry that my actions made so many people feel uneasy and scary at a place where a safe learning environment is to be taken for granted. I am ashamed of my actions. They were wrong and irrational. I may not ever be able to attend the campus. It may be difficult for all of you to understand that the motive of my mistake was solely out of my immature selfishness. Nevertheless, I like to deliver my feeling of repentance that I have lived with since I made my error. From the bottom of my heart, I beg forgiveness from each and every one at UBC. For the Ubyssey, this is Maggie Zelaya.